channel in the rebel combat zone. Barricades that have been set up, and beyond those barricades is the deployment of the Russian army, up close and fearless in Ukraine's combat zone.
You are watching India Today. You are watching India Today.
Without wasting a moment, let's get you the top 5 developments that we're tracking in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. The invasion has begun. India Today reports from ground zero. Here are the top developments. Explosions reported from various locations across Ukraine. Kharkiv and the Donbas region has witnessed big explosions. Blasts were also reported from Mariupol in the Donetsk province of eastern Ukraine after President Putin of Russia announced military operations in the country. Ukraine has claimed at least 7 persons have been killed and 9 wounded in Russian shelling just a few hours ago. Panic has spread across the country as after Putin's decision to launch that military operation in Ukraine, massive traffic jams have been seen across the streets of the capital city, Kiev, as people are looking to flee. Ukraine's central bank has limited cash withdrawals from the bank accounts up to 100,000 hryvnia, that's the currency, per day. Ukraine's ambassador to India has sought Prime Minister Modi's personal intervention. He's urged Prime Minister Modi to immediately contact Russian President Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Says India has a special relationship with Russia and can play a key role in keeping this situation under control. Meanwhile, the Ministry of External Affairs in Delhi conducted a high-level meeting and has put a contingency plan of operations in place. Alternate evacuation routes are being activated. The External Affairs Ministry's control room is being expanded and made operational 24/7 to assist students and other Indian nationals stranded in Ukraine. The economy, meanwhile, globally has been impacted. Here in India, the Sensex has crashed over 2,000 points. The Nifty has also fallen over 500 points. Investors have lost over 7.5 lakh crore rupees within minutes of the market's opening. Crypto has fallen up to 10% as Russia begins this invasion of Ukraine. And like I told you, we're reporting from Ukraine, but we're also reporting from Russia, getting you voices on both sides to give you a true 360-degree view of this entire developing situation. There's conflict. It has become a shooting war. The kinetic combat aspect of this conflict has already broken out. The images are dramatic. The voices are unsettling. We've shown you what's happening in Ukraine. Let's get a perspective from Russia now. Alexander Bratersky is a senior analyst from Moscow. Tatiana Kukareva is a journalist also joining me live from Moscow. Tatiana, to you first. Welcome to you both. Thank you for your time on this, at a time of great uncertainty, for Russia and Ukraine as far as this crisis is concerned. Many claims are being made, Tatiana, with the Ukraine government saying that many Russian troops have been killed in action. 5 or 7 Russian aircraft have been shot down. Many such claims are being made. Can you give us your perspective of where things are at from the Russian side?
Well, look, it's not just claims from the Ukrainian side. It's, for instance, your coverage. You're saying an invasion has begun. An invasion, by definition, means an invasion by an army. So that means actual boots on actual ground. In the meantime, the Ministry of the Russian Federation has repeatedly stated that there are no boots on Ukrainian ground. All of the precision strikes are made from a distance. And the only things that are being targeted are military targets, are military objects, airfields, armories, etc. We've stated time and time again that the civilian population is not being targeted and will not be targeted. It is not an invasion, it's a military operation and an attempt to demilitarize Ukraine and to stop aggression on the regions that were recognized as independent by Russia on Monday.
Can you detail for us a little bit more, Tatiana, the nature of the images coming out of Ukraine suggest exactly what you're saying. There are no images of boots on the ground. There have been some, stray images of tanks rolling across borders. But like we've repeatedly said here on India Today, the authenticity and the dates of those images, cannot be authenticated at this point of time. But you're saying that there are standoff attacks that are taking place on military establishments and air bases. Is that correct? Can you tell us about the nature of these attacks?
Well, yes, the Ministry of the Defense of the Russian Federation, if anything, they've been very vocal and they've released pictures at any point in time, and they have reiterated numerously that there are no boots on Ukrainian ground. They're targeting military targets. They're targeting military infrastructure. To be precise, the strikes began, early in the morning, as early as the military operation was announced. And so far, all of the pictures, actual pictures coming out of Ukraine that can be verified, just suggest exactly that. So the Ukrainian side, as per usual, are claiming that there are, there's human loss amid the Russian army, which is preposterous because there's no actual proof. There are no images. There's literally zero proof of that would back any of those claims.
Okay, so there are claims and counterclaims, taking place. There's a great deal of fog of war that's already on. Big claims being made from the Ukrainian side, which could be very much be part of what our correspondents on the ground have also said is for the domestic audience in Ukraine. At a time.
It's not just the domestic audience, though, is it? I mean, Ukraine has been claiming war with Russia for 8 years.
Yeah, since 2014.
Actually scoring real funding from the EU, from the US. They've scored billions in cash for, on military aid, on just simply aid, all of that, thanks to their numerous claims.
But none of those countries have done anything, have they? I mean, there's sanctions on on Russia, Tatiana. But is Russia expecting that countries, the NATO, will actually do anything more than just sanctions?
Well, hopefully they won't. But again, unfortunately, I can't put words into the mouth of the president of the Russian Federation. But hopefully our European and our Western allies understand that if we say that this is a military operation, that is the sole purpose of it is to stop the hostilities, because we've witnessed firsthand on our border 8 years of war against the civilian population of Donetsk and Lugansk regions, that the only desire that they expressed is to be independent, to stop any association with the nationalist government in Kiev. And we've witnessed 8 years of war. There were multiple occasions where Ukrainian shells actually landed on Russian territory as well. And this had to stop. So that is the message, that was the message from the Russian president, that the attempt is to save the civilian population. The attempt is to stop the hostilities, to stop the attacks. And I'm hoping that the Western partners will see it as just that. So far, we haven't seen, we've obviously heard the reaction, some very worrisome reaction coming from the United Kingdom, for example. Boris Johnson actually calling for Ukraine to stand up to Russia. And, Ukraine has been aggressing these regions for 8 years. Those same Western partners that were supposed to guarantee that the country abides by Minsk agreements, they did nothing. They didn't do a single thing, but they did give a lot of money to Kiev government to help.
Tatiana.
To help.
Yes.
To help the military operations. So, it's only time will tell what the reaction will be, but I'm hoping that at this point they get the message that the hostilities has to stop.
So, whether they've gotten the message or not, time will tell. We'll have to wait and see what the reaction of those countries is going to be, because the standoff strikes, as Tatiana confirms, that the Russian government is firm that there is no invasion. These are, standoff strikes from a distance that are taking place to debilitate military establishments, not anywhere close to civilian establishments. We've seen the Mariupol airport that has been destroyed and bombed as well. Alexander Bratursky is also a senior analyst. He's with me live from Moscow. Alexander, where do you see... Alexander, before I come to you, just a quick piece of breaking news for our viewers. Ukraine has cut diplomatic ties with Russia. I mean, probably was going to happen, not surprising. Ukraine's president says his country has cut diplomatic ties with Russia after the attacks began today. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced the decision to rupture ties with Moscow on Thursday after it launched massive air and missile attacks on its neighbor. And Russian forces were seen rolling into Ukraine, which is something that Russia denies has happened. Ukrainian officials say the country's military is fighting back and asked for Western defense assistance. Let's just listen in.
We're all the citizens of the beautiful country, and we are fighting for our freedom. We're defending our freedom. Be prepared to protect your country on the squares of your cities and towns. We will relieve the sanctions of every citizen of Ukraine who is ready to protect and defend our country with weapons in their hands. Ukraine is defending and would not give its freedom, whatever they think in Moscow. For the Ukrainians, our independence and the right to live in our land in accordance with our will. Russia cowardly attacked our country early in the morning, very much like the Nazi Germany did during the Second World War. As of today, our countries are on the different side of the world divide. Russian Federation is on the evil side, but a lot depends on the Russian people. The citizens of Russia will be choosing which path they are personally.
Senior Moscow analyst Alexander Bratursky is also with us live from Moscow. Alexander, Ukrainian president announcing the cutting off of diplomatic ties with Russia, probably inevitable, given the circumstances. But what is your assessment of the current crisis, Alexander? Where do you see it headed now?
Well, actually, the current crisis is actually seen as a plain invasion by the Russian side. Although I would agree with my colleague from Russia that Ukrainian side has for years has neglected Donbass, and President Poroshenko, when he was a commander-in-chief, actually bombed Donbass people, and a lot of them been killed. However, Russia supplied and helped the separatist region with the military aid, and somehow the fighting was, less. And then now it's actually seen the last Putin attempt to kind of like conquer the whole Ukraine, but that looks like his own political decision. We have seen the Security Council meeting where everybody just noted in agreement. Well, I see Russia, I would compare Russia now to the United States as it acted against Yugoslavia in 1999. Then United States, without any agreement from UN, has attacked Yugoslavia, an independent country. So that's actually reminds me of that situation.
Do you see this? Do you see the hostilities escalating now, Alexander? Tatiana says it's too early to call. It'll be interesting to see how NATO countries react now, because all this while until the first shots were fired, many NATO countries, the United States, were saying that if shots are fired, if combat actually begins, then Russia will face the consequences. What are these countries expected to do now?
Well, I would agree with a colleague. It's actually not that you don't have boots on the ground. There may be some Russian military in the eastern side, because the eastern side claims that some of the Ukrainian forces are actually claiming for humanitarian corridor and wants to surrender. And this is the only possibility. So what Putin is expecting, I don't think so. He's expecting a large-scale war. So probably he wants to do this operation for a couple of days, and then to force President Zelensky and his surroundings to negotiate, maybe with the help of some other sides. Let's say people like senior people in the world, like Prime Minister Modi, for example, or the UN people, because I don't think so the West would be the mediator as it was during the Georgia-Russian conflict. So for Putin, of course, it's not to force the whole Ukraine under his hands, although that might be his political goal, but to force Ukraine into neutrality and not to join NATO. Maybe this will be achieved, but Russia will still face very hard sanctions from the West. That's unfortunately.
Absolutely. And, that's what I wanted to ask. The sanctions are already high. There are more sanctions in the barrel that could be flowing out, depending on what happens. Tatiana, to you, what is the end? I know this is a difficult question because this is such a developing situation. It could, there are many different ways it could actually go. But the end game for President Putin is for NATO to be off the table as far as Ukraine is concerned, and for these hostilities to actually end. Is there a clear path towards that? Given what we're seeing right now?
Well, that's unfortunately that only time will tell, because of course the end game for Russia has been very clear for all this time. We've spoken about red lines. We've spoken about the fact that there are still, to this day, yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, the US has actually ordered the pullout of military advisors that they had on the ground in Ukraine. That's right. And, even the sole presence of those military advisors, that was completely unacceptable, because, not only does it contradict the Ukrainian constitution, but generally that sends a very, very disturbing message here to Russia, because, we have military advisors on the ground in Ukraine. We have NATO spreading eastward, spreading without a stop, and they don't make it even, they don't make a single sign of the fact that they're not willing to go even closer to our border. And the president has already reiterated it multiple times. It's completely unacceptable from our Western partners. The same, it would have been the same if, for instance, Russia was trying to spread bases and to set up the camp outside the American border. I do believe that would be disturbing for Washington, D.C. However, unfortunately, the double standards that Washington applies to everybody else apart from, their own interests is still in place. And Russia has made it abundantly clear this is completely unacceptable. Unfortunately, we have to wait and see whether our Western partners actually get the message this time around that we're not joking around. We don't like a military threat outside of our borders. We already have an immense number of NATO troops outside our borders in Poland, in Baltic countries. And this is enough, you know.
Okay, so it's Russia saying enough is enough. I want to get a quick word. Thanks very much, Tatiana and Alexander, for being with me. Very valuable to get your assessment from Moscow as well, because we, already there's a lot of misinformation. So getting a well-rounded perspective from all sides is crucial to us here on India Today. Rajesh, you just heard the voices from Moscow. They're saying that these are standoff strikes. Precisely what you were also saying. That there don't appear to be boots on the ground or tanks crossing the border. That could be misinformation, but standoff attacks are taking place with missiles and aircraft.
I totally agree with you. They were standoff attacks.
Yeah.
I was here in the morning when Mariupol airport was attacked. We did not hear any aircraft, no noises. It was a precision attack on the Mariupol airport in the morning, like in Odessa or on the other airports in Ukraine. Russia has not hit any civilian target as far as my knowledge is concerned. And as I've been saying since morning, there are no boots on the ground.
Yeah.
No tanks are rolling inside Ukraine as of now, as has been reported by probably other channels or some other Indian media. There are no tanks rolling inside and no boots on the ground, only precision airstrikes at the airports to make sure that Ukrainian air defense is knocked out. And what your lady correspondent spoke from Moscow, I more or less agree with her that when Ukraine was bombing Donbass, killing civilians over there, there was no ripples in the West. There were no statements from any politicians in the West.
Yeah.
And now suddenly they've woken up to the fact that these people actually want their independence and do not want to stay with Ukraine anymore. And one more last point I would like to say.
Yes.
This war is, as I said earlier, is not just about military strikes. This is a hybrid warfare, and it is also a warfare of perceptions and misinformation. Both the countries, Ukraine, if you see the statement of President Zelensky today and of Mr. Putin in the morning, is exactly the same. It's also a war for the hearts of the people.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people on both sides believe they are same people. They're Slavic people, same culture, same history, same language. They do not want to fight.
Absolutely.
90% people I have met in Ukraine or in Russia before think they're brothers. And it's only America which wants to see them fight. And this is a war by both the presidents to address the public in both the countries to make sure that they understand the point. And Putin, believe me, hopes that probably half of the Ukrainian army will lay down arms and will not fight against the Russians.
Rajesh, your perspective is so valuable right now because you're calling a spade a spade. We're not going to buy into the disinformation, misinformation, propaganda on either side. There are double standards and hypocrisies in the West, in Ukraine, in Russia, all across. So we have to take everything with a pinch of salt when covering conflict. And that's why we have the best team on the ground. Rajesh, Maria, Gaurav are in Ukraine covering the story very sensitively, putting themselves in harm's way in eastern Ukraine to bring us the real story. And we will not believe anything that is thrown at us. We will analyze it for you so you know the truth because you are owed the truth here on India Today. This is real war reporting, not some fancy graphics that other channels put on air to try and tempt and titillate the viewer. This is conflict. It has to be taken seriously, and we will do nothing but that. Very quick break. Not taking our gaze away from this story. Please stay with us here on India Today.
You are watching India Today.
This is Ukraine's true danger zone. This is where gun firing and artillery firing has begun. after a perilous 14-hour train journey from Kiev. India Today reports from the real war zone. Only channel in the rebel combat zone.
Barricades that have been set up, and beyond those barricades is the deployment of the Russian army.
Up close and fearless in Ukraine's combat zone.
You
At the moment, we got like 15 customers who paid in cryptocurrency, and 7 of the customers has bought our NFTs.
You are watching India Today.
Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast that comes to you from the strife-torn eastern Ukraine. I'm in Mariupol, barely 20 kilometers from the front lines, where Russian forces are engaged in a fierce conflict with the Ukrainian forces. On ground here in Mariupol and perhaps almost across Ukraine, there is panic on the streets. There have been a series of attacks in multiple cities. Here, Mariupol to Kharkiv in eastern Ukraine, to outskirts of Kiev and several other parts. Over the course of the next half hour, I will get you details. But as always, let's get started with the headlines on India Today. Russia declares war on Ukraine. President Putin announces an invasion. Ukraine compares Russia's actions to Nazi Germany. Multiple explosions reported across Ukraine. Russia claims to have neutralized Ukraine's air defense. Ukraine claims to have killed 50 Russian troops and destroyed 6 aircraft. Total meltdown in Ukraine, panic buying on the streets, long queues outside ATMs and massive traffic jams reported in the capital, Kiev. Russian invasion has mega global economic impact. Sensex closes down 2,702 points. It's the second largest fall ever. Crude oil prices hit a 7-year high. India issues an advisory to nationals stranded in Ukraine, asks everyone to stay indoors, stay where you are, homes or hostels. MEA sets up a 24/7 control room. Ukraine's envoy seeks Prime Minister Narendra Modi's intervention. India Today is the only Indian channel reporting from every key region in Ukraine, from Donbass to Kiev to Mariupol. Your channel brings you all the latest from Ground Zero. What we're able to see on ground: 1, explosions; 2, military movement; 3, a lot of emergency vehicles moving in this area; 4, people being asked to stay where they are as much as possible. And Ukraine has decided to cut off all diplomatic ties with Russia. That's the information that's just filtering in. Ukraine has called Russia's actions as invasion like Nazi Germany in the Second World War. Let me get you the latest developments that are taking place at this point of time. Ukraine has cut off relations with Russia. Ukraine claims more than 40 Ukrainian soldiers were killed. Ukraine has also said 10 civilians have been killed in the Russian attack. Ukraine claims that at least 50 Russian invaders, that's the terminology used, 50 Russian invaders have been killed. What has this resulted in? This has resulted in massive panic almost across Ukraine. There are long traffic jams, people desperate to get out of the capital, Kiev. They expect an attack on Kiev. Even in other towns and cities across Ukraine, there is panic buying. In Britain, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, has called for an emergency meeting of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries. Boris Johnson has also said he will speak to G7 leaders for the next course of action. Russia's actions, of course, have also been criticized by US President Joe Biden. There is widespread condemnation, but what will it lead to beyond this remains the big question. India Today, of course, has the biggest team of reporters on Ground Zero. I'm reporting from Mariupol. Maria joins us from Kiev. We have Rajesh Pawar joining us from the battlefield. In fact, Rajesh and I have been traveling from Kharkiv to Mariupol to Kiev to various other regions in Ukraine over the past 1 week. We will get you ground realities. We have Lavina Tandon who will join us from London, Geeta Mohan from the national capital, and Rohit will join us from Washington, D.C. to give you a 360-degree perspective of not just the war on ground, but also the diplomatic war that is being fought. But I quickly want to cut across to Maria for the latest. Maria, in Kiev, what's the latest situation?
Yeah, hello. I'm still in city center in Kiev, but not near the office of the president, because we were told by the police and the military in the streets not to the governmental quarters right now. So I had to move somewhere from that quarters, but I'm close to the city center. Just half an hour ago, 40 minutes to be exact, there was heard again a new strike, the sound of explosion in the city center. We heard only the sound, and the explosion was in Brovary. It's a city close to Kiev, kind of like several kilometers away from Kiev, where a lot of people live, like residential area, and people go to Kiev from Brovary for work usually. And there was a strike, and the media reports that the strike was also again on the object of military infrastructure. So that was the sound which we heard an hour ago, not hour, sorry, 40 minutes ago. So the information right now is warning are coming from the official bodies, officials here in Kiev for the residents, so that they would be patient and wait for the new updates. They also say that they asked.
If you can hear me, Maria, I'll interrupt you for a moment. I'll interrupt you for a moment. If our viewers can hear this, this is Mariupol. You hear a series. Hear the sound. Hear the sound. This is Mariupol. This sounds like very intense artillery pounding. This, in a way, could well be Grad multiple barrel rocket launchers going one after the other. Zoom, 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 zoom. That's the kind of sound that's coming from behind us at this point of time. Are these multiple barrel rocket launchers? Are these a series of artillery strikes that are taking place? We still do not know, but it's so close. It's so close where this is happening right now here in Mariupol. And Maria, the situation here also is leading to intense panic and intense panic buying. Are you also seeing that in Kiev? Here people want to leave, but the airport, we are told, has been bombed out. The railway station is shut. People are unable to leave by road. What's the situation in Kiev, Maria?
Yes, sorry, always changing my video to read the news because there are disturbing pictures of strikes of the smoke which can be seen over the Dnipro River in the city center, actually in the Podil area, and I'm trying to verify.
These are tanks and armored carriers. Now, this is quick movement that is taking place even as we speak, Maria. This is the view on the high street where I am in Mariupol at this point of time. Now, this is how close the battle is. This is the high street, and one after the other, you see military vehicles that are just going in towards the border right now. And swift movement, civilian traffic stopped. Only military vehicles are crossing this place. And that was a tank on a tank. The situation is right now here in Mariupol, and what the situation would be in the days and weeks ahead. Maria, stay with me for a moment. I also want to bring in India Today's Lavina Tandon for more on this and weeks ahead. Maria, stay with me for a moment. I also want to bring in India Today's Lavina Tandon for more on this as we report the story from Ground Zero. A lot of hope was, at least here in Ukraine, Lavina, that diplomacy would work, that countries like United States, United Kingdom, US, NATO allies, they will all be able to prevail upon Russia diplomatically to perhaps negotiate their way out of the situation. Is that still likely, Lavina?
Only in one situation, Gaurav, to just quickly bring you up to speed with a few facts. That Prime Minister was woken up at 4 a.m. with the news of invasion. He did the Cobra meeting, and he will be addressing the nation before he addresses the parliament at 5 p.m. Now, it is at 5 p.m. that your answer to your question lies. And probably it will be diplomatic.
Lavina, give me a moment. I want to cut across to my colleague Rajesh Pawar joining us from Mariupol. Rajesh, there is firing happening where you are at this point of time. these are images that we are getting to you from the front lines. This is where action is taking place even as we speak. This is barely 20 kilometers from where we are. Of course, signals are a little weak in that area, but we were reporting from this area where you have Ukrainian troops literally in trenches and Russian troops across barely 3 kilometers away. And you have artillery rounds that are going on, artillery pounding that is underway in that area. And we're reporting from ground zero on that story. Rajesh Pawar will get us more details in terms of action that is taking place on ground. But look around us, there is very quick movement that is taking place. That is quick movement is taking place of additional men and material towards the front lines even as we speak. I once again want to quickly bring into this conversation Lavina Tandon from London. So Lavina, the battle well and truly on at this point of time.
Actually, and the one country that can impact it in some way to stall it is UK. And I'll tell you why. Because it is London, which is the biggest place where, after Russia, the dirty money of Russia has been stashed. And only if that is attacked. So leading up to this crisis, Gaurav, 5 small Russian banks and 3 oligarchs were sanctioned. They were frozen. The assets were frozen. But that is not enough. And that is what the Prime Minister has been pulled for, that it is London, which is the money laundering capital of the world, where dirty money of Russia lies, and why nothing is being done about that. And that could have some impact on Putin. And the second thing is NATO. How far can NATO go to stand with Ukraine, despite the fact that they are not the members? But this will impact the entire region and possibly have global repercussion as well if this goes to full-scale invasion. Now, number 3, that 5 p.m. Boris Johnson will be addressing the parliament, where he's supposed to kind of unveil the second phase, which is the super sanction package. Now, he will be pulled on that as to whether it is a real impact sanction, because after all, just the Conservative Party has received to the amount of 2.3 billion towards donations for the party. So are we really, or UK is really going to lockstep and just follow the events and do the word game? Or will it really lead the entire situation and impact what Putin is trying to do, which is stamp and seal the dirty money in London? Gaurav.
Will that actually happen on ground? Because what is it that Russian President Vladimir Putin has said? He addressed the nation. He said that he'd ordered military operations. He'd ordered his army to carry out offensive operations to ensure that Ukraine is demilitarized. What does that indicate? Will Russian troops be soon marching into eastern Ukraine? At least there are some videos that have been put out that seem to indicate this. A multi-pronged offensive has taken place already. Maria reporting from Kiev that there were certain explosions that were heard on the outskirts of Kiev. Certain airports have been targeted, airfields have been targeted, air defense in Ukraine has been targeted, and that is actually classic war strategy, that you take down the enemy's or the adversary's ability to use his air force and take down his air defenses. Certain other vital assets, vital points, including ammunition depots and dumps, have been targeted. And subsequently, we notice that Russian troops are preparing to come in. What we're also noticing is additional warlike stores are being sent to the front lines. I want to once again bring in Maria. Maria, has this led to a lot of panic on the streets of Kiev? Are people very keen, very eager to leave Kiev?
Yeah, right. Some of them are still living now, so it has been happening since morning. People with suitcases are going on the streets, sitting, putting their stuff in the cars and trying to leave. And all the world have seen these pictures of cars, of traffic jam, which is on the outskirts of Kiev. These are cars of people who are trying to flee, trying to go out of the city. So what the situation now here in the streets, it's pretty calm for now in Kiev. A lot of military actually, they told us not to film this because of safety measures, and that's understandable because now Ukraine is under attack of rockets, and they say that they target the places which are also put out in social media. And also one more information. So in total, there were 7 Russian military aircraft which were put down by Ukrainian Air Force. So the claims of Putin about Ukrainian Air Force being defeated, they're true. Ukrainian Air Force.
Okay. And as Maria was just telling us, there's breaking news that's coming in. Ukraine has said 1 more Russian plane. So in all, total 7 Russian planes have been shot down, is what Ukraine has now said. So Russia initially was trying to suppress the enemy air defense or take down the adversary's air defenses. Russia targeted multiple air defense nodes of Ukraine, but Ukraine has just issued a statement saying 7 Russian aircraft and helicopters have now been taken down. Maria, is there clarity where all have these Russian aircraft and helicopters been taken down?
Yes, just right now as we speak, there is a picture which appeared online near Hostomel. This is the place where a military airport is situated, Ukrainian military airdrome. And the official information is so that 3 military helicopters were taken down. And the picture shows these missiles of Ukrainian aircraft targeting these Russian helicopters. So as you see, that is a full-scale invasion to the territory of Ukraine. So the airstrikes are conducted on the peaceful grounds, on the grounds of Ukraine, on the military objects. Of course, the experts who are now monitoring the situation say that Russia's target is military objects and they won't target peaceful quarters of cities because that's a too high price for them. We hope so, but nothing is clear for now. We see that airstrikes are being conducted more and more and nothing is clear. But I should also tell about the situation with other Ukrainian troops. So there are some advances on other fronts. For example, Chernihiv, which is to the north of Kyiv, this direction is under control of Ukrainian army, so they defeated Russian artillery, which was attacking the border. Also, the same situation is near Kharkiv. We have heard the official information about the fact that the units combined out of people with no military experience, so the freshly drawn to the army people have combated 3 tanks near Kharkiv. So Ukrainian army sends and repels the Russian aggression as we see it for now. Back to you.
Interesting that you say that this appears to be a multi-pronged offensive that is currently taking place. Kharkiv in eastern Ukraine, where we are in Donbass, at Donetsk and Luhansk in eastern Ukraine, and then from the north side, from the Belarus side, there is an offensive and air defenses. Russia is trying to take them down, and Ukraine firing back and destroying 7 helicopters and aircraft of the Russian Air Force. Now, what is it that the Russian President Vladimir Putin are saying, and Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine? Let me get you both sides of the story. Let me get you both the versions. Listen in.
For those who may be tempted to interfere in the events taking place from the outside, whoever tries to interfere with us, let alone create threats for our country, for our nation, must know that Russia's response will be immediate, and it will lead you to such consequences that you've never faced before in your history. We are prepared for any development. All the necessary decisions have been taken. I hope my call will be heard. We simply don't have any other choice to protect our people, and will have to use the only available choice that we will use today. The circumstances require immediate, resolute action. The People's Republics of the Donbass have requested assistance from Russia. In this regard, in line with Article 51.7 of the UN Charter, with the authorization of the Parliament of Russia, and in exercising the Treaty on Friendship and Mutual Assistance with the Donetsk People's Republics and the Lugansk People's Republics, I've taken the decision to conduct a special military operation. Its purpose is to protect people who have been subject to abuse and genocide by the Kiev regime for 8 years. And to do this, we will strive to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine, and also bring to justice those who have committed numerous bloody crimes against civilians, including citizens of the Russian Federation on the Donbass. What we're seeing is that the forces that led a coup d'etat in 2014 have captured power, and they've been preserving it through some declarative procedures. They don't want to see any peaceful resolution in the Donbass. For 8 years, long 8 years, we've done everything to address the situation through peaceful political forces. It's all been in vain. Now, as I said in my previous address, we cannot just sit idly by and watch the tragedy unfolding. We cannot just be patient. We had to stop that nightmare and genocide against millions of people who pinned their hopes entirely on Russia, on us. These aspirations, the pain of the people, have been the key motive behind the decision to recognize the People's Republics in the Donbass. What should we highlight? Leading NATO countries have supported extreme nationalists and neo-Nazi pursuing their goals. And those forces in Ukraine will never forgive Crimeans for their free choice. And they will push for Crimea. And just like they did in the Donbass, they will push for a war there. Just like the Hitlerites' bands in Ukraine killed local people in World War II, and they also lay claims to some other Russian territories. The intelligence we receive is that a clash against these Nazi forces is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. They are biding their time.
We're all the citizens of the beautiful country, and we are fighting for our freedom. We're defending our freedom. Be prepared to protect your country on the squares of your cities and towns. We will relieve the sanctions of every citizen of Ukraine who is ready to protect and defend our country with weapons in their hands. Ukraine is defending and would not give its freedom, whatever they think in Moscow. For the Ukrainians, our independence and the right to live in our land in accordance with our will. Russia cowardly attacked our country early in the morning, very much like Nazi Germany did during the Second World War. As of today, our countries are on the different side of the world divide. Russian Federation is on the evil side, but a lot depends on the Russian people. The citizens of Russia will be choosing which path they are personally.
And news just coming in, the Indian Air Force has been put on standby. The Indian Air Force will prepare to evacuate Indian citizens who are currently in Ukraine. And there are a large number of Indian citizens who are currently stranded in Ukraine. There are about 20,000 Indian students and workers in the IT sector, Indian students who are studying medicine, not just in the capital Kiev, but also all around, whether it's in Odessa or in Kharkiv, different other parts of Ukraine who are studying. Will they all be brought first to the capital Kiev and then evacuated to India? When will that window of opportunity be? Because as of now, there is a NOTAM or a notice to airmen that has been issued that there should be no flying. There is a no-fly zone across entire Ukraine. I quickly want to cut across to Executive Editor Shiv Arur, joining us for more on the story. Shiv, tell us more about the evacuation plan currently being worked on.
Gaurav, this is strictly a contingency plan at this point of time. The Air Force has told us that they are ready to, carry out any mission that the Indian government requires of them. As you rightly pointed out, it is in the realm of uncertainty at this point of time because airspace is closed. Some flights haven't, the second Air India flight couldn't even land to evacuate Indians. So there's a great deal of uncertainty over whether flights can actually land. But the Air Force, on its part, being a professional service, is already on standby. It's put its aircraft on standby, C-17s and others. So should the Indian government require an air evacuation, should in the next few hours or days the airspace become open in Ukraine, then the Air Force can react at very, very short notice and get aircraft into the air to go to Ukraine to bring back Indians. So that is the contingency plan right now. The Indian Air Force has had a lot of experience, even recently during the air evacuation from Afghanistan. The situation isn't as bad just yet. Hopefully, it doesn't get that bad in Ukraine. But air bridges, international air bridges to bring Indians back, is par for the course as far as the Indian Air Force is concerned. And they have confirmed to me that they're very much prepared to carry out any missions that they're ordered to do by the Indian government. So they very much are on standby for short notice evacuation if required.
Shiv, when you look at the bigger picture of what's happening here in Ukraine, I'm reporting from Mariupol, so I'll be able to tell our viewers about what's happening in the east. But across, the Russians seem to be moving to a plan, the systematic targeting of air defense assets of Ukraine, the targeting of various airfields, ammunition dumps, and overall, what does this indicate? This only is set to intensify in the days ahead, given that there is response, retaliation, air defense assets haven't been taken down completely, and that 7 Russian aircraft and helicopters have been shot down, Shiv.
Great deal of, claims and counterclaims are exploding on both sides, Gaurav, and we are the only channel, that isn't taking many of these claims at face value. There are other channels that are, lapping up all these extravagant claims being made by both Ukraine and Russia and looking pretty foolish, if you ask me. But there's a reason why everyone's watching India today, and that's because, we're reporting the facts. War is too sensitive an issue, to have half-baked information out on, and that's the reason why you're on the ground as well. But you're right when you say things are moving to a script. The Russians have been extremely insistent to correct those calling this entire exercise an invasion. They say there are no boots on the ground. What is being conducted are standoff military strikes using missiles and air power on particular military sites. They're also emphasizing that no collateral damage is being seen on the ground, that they're being careful not to attack sites which are close to civilian establishments. But you've seen the Mariupol aircraft in flames, Gaurav, after it was bombed earlier today. Shelling has taken place. There's definitely a great deal of damage that has already happened. What President Putin's endgame is remains to be seen. Bringing Ukraine to the negotiating table, abandoning plans of joining the NATO. There are so many possibilities, but they are also extreme, and these are still early hours. Remember, there is an assessment that these are only the early days of what could be an extended conflict.
What appears to be an extended conflict, because as you can hear behind us, I mean, every little while you hear an explosion. At times you hear a volley of explosions. And Shiv, you wonder whether these are those grads that are going off or artillery guns going off in quick succession, one after the other. But certainly a massive intensification. Ukraine calls it an invasion. Russia calls it, of course, a military offensive to demilitarize Ukraine. But when you look at the military balance between the two countries, Shiv, odds appear to be very heavily stacked against Russia, against Ukraine at this stage. So explain this. How long can Ukraine actually stand up to Russia should other countries not intervene, Shiv? Give me a moment as I try and reestablish that link. Also, news coming in that there has been some fresh firing or bombing that's been reported around Kiev. I quickly want to cut across to Maria joining us from Kiev. Maria, what more can you tell us? Reports of these fresh explosions that have been heard?
So yes, no sounds of explosion heard for now, but there are the surfacing of new pictures of fire and smoke over the region of Podil. This is a region close, a district close to the city center in Kiev. So we see the pictures with this fire tail of smoke going all over above the Dnipro River. And for now, there were no official reports about what it is exactly. So we are yet to verify this information. What exactly is this? Was it a strike or any other type of bombing, of shelling, or other activity of the enemy? So for now, what we see now is again the reports about the fact that in total 7 aircraft of Russia were taken down by Ukrainian military, by Ukrainian air forces. We see these reports of battles going here and there over again. And the huge news of the recent past hours is that Ukraine has broke off diplomatic ties with Russia. So this is what is now discussed on social media. People are writing that should have been done previously, a long time ago, because the war has been going on for 8 years and now it has reached its climax. So I can also show you what's going on with bomb shelters, which people are trying to prepare for possible new strikes. For example, this is the shelter which was opened just an hour ago. So the people living here opened this shelter and went to see if it is ready for the moment they need it. So I will show you quickly how it looks like. So I need to mention that this is one of the good ones. So this is the shelter. So sorry, there should be some light. So it used to work 2 hours ago, but no, I guess no light for now. Strange, but you see there is the name in Ukrainian, it's called bomb shelter, and there is a huge place underneath the residential building. So sorry, I won't be able to show you because the light doesn't turn on, but that's not because of connections are bad or something went wrong with electricity in Kiev. No, the connection is fine, everything is fine. So mobile operators are still working, and people are understanding that they need their food supplies to be ready for anything. They need shelters to be ready for anything, because you won't see the same situation as it is now in Kiev. Just I guess 6, 7, 8 hours ago. 8 hours ago, nobody believed that this should happen, that this could happen, that the shelling of Ukraine all over, not only in Donbass, but also in other regions like Ivano-Frankivsk could happen. And we have also the information of casualties. One child was killed during the shelling of civil objects over the course of these 8 hours. So there are the reports going on about the fact how many casualties are there already. So I have now yet to clarify and to justify the information about numbers, but this news about one child who lost his or her life because of Russian bombing, it is already was verified by the defense ministry. So the situation now in Kyiv, it's still terrifying, but military also in the streets, but everything else is like several hours ago. Back to you.
Turenko is the journalist in Ukraine. Maria, you were showing us just a short while ago a sort of a bunker that appears to have been prepared. And while you were showing us, that basically reflects the ground situation. I'm Pooja Shali. I'm in the studio here. What I want to understand now, you're talking to us about a possible casualty of a child. What is the current status on the ground with regard to people? We saw people in distress, in panic while there are explosions happening. What about women, children? What about supermarkets, essential items that they will now require? And there is so much uncertainty right now on the ground. What are you picking up about citizens around you? How are they preparing? Because these bunkers may not be readily available for many of them.
Yes, right. Hours ago in the city center where I'm now, a lot of people were running in the streets with shopping bags, going to the nearest grocery store to buy some grocery to stock on necessary things. A lot of people are still walking in the streets with bags of food and also supplies of water. So this what was happening hugely and massively, I guess, from 8 o'clock in the morning till an hour or so ago. Now it's 1
On with me
p.m.
because we are, as the world is watching what is unfolding in Ukraine, we are getting information that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to hold a meeting on the Ukraine crisis. We're going to get you developments on that. Remember, of course, the Indian government is very closely watching and tracking developments as Russia has declared a war. At this point, there are many Indian nationals who have to be now evacuated, many of them still stranded in Ukraine with the airspace that has been put on restrictions right now. And Prime Minister Modi is all set to be in a short while hold a meeting, and it will include, of course, the top of the government. It will have the defense minister, the home minister, and all important figures and ministers will be there in this meeting. In just a short while, I'm going to connect with our reporters on the ground. Finance Minister, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval will also be participating in this meeting. This is an emergency meeting that has been called, and it will begin in just a short while, that Prime Minister Modi will be holding on how India needs to possibly react, which is already closely watching since today morning that the developments are unfolding. And as we stay with this big news, remember, for Ukraine, it was a morning that every citizen dreads. For Ukrainians, the nightmare is now actually a living reality. Remember, Russia is already at its eastern border, shelling in border areas, while Ukrainians in other cities are clearly in a war panic. It has dawned on them that the war is currently taking place in and around them. And of course, while that is taking place kilometers away, Indian nationals and Indian government is already giving out advisory. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to, in just a short while, hold an emergency meeting and will include the Defense Minister, the National Security Advisor, Finance Minister, Home Minister. All of them are now going to focus and strategize on how should the Indian government react. What should be the statement coming in from India? Remember, already the West, specifically Europe and the United States of America, has been sending out statements condemning specifically Russia in this conflict. Maria, I want to come back to you because you're on the ground at this point while the Indian government is all set to hold a crucial meeting. What is happening there on the ground in terms of the government? We know that the government had emergency meetings in Ukraine as well. The members of parliament had a discussion. But now that the war is at the door, what happens there in terms of the government by Ukraine? Maria, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. For a moment, I will be without video so that I could see the latest updates. So the latest updates from the defense ministry is that Ukrainians are strong and holding the positions in Zhytomyr Oblast. It's to the west of Kyiv. The border defense says that there was an attempt to cross the border from the Belarusian side, but the border control managed to repel this attack. So this is the latest update. Sorry for problems with video, but I'm still here. I'm still with you. So another information about latest updates. Also, we have reported. We talked already about the break of the diplomatic ties between Ukraine and Russia, and for now. All the citizens are advised to stay home, not to flee the city, because this panic doesn't help, actually, which is really understandably. And we are here, as many Ukrainians are now, sitting at home watching state television, state official resources of information and waiting for what comes next. So for now, the situation is really terrifying, strange, but nothing changed over the course of 2 hours, I guess. Yes. The only information updates are that these military helicopters were repelled near Hostomel airdrop. So for now, that's it.
Please, I request you to stay on and stay safe as well. Thank you for getting us that ground update. I'm also now joined by Rajesh Pawar. He's been constantly updating us, and that from Mariupol. Now, Rajesh, we could hear shelling explosions, and we could also see tanks that are speeding on the streets there in Mariupol. What is the ground status, specifically with regard to explosion sounds that are only getting louder, which means it's coming closer?
Look, Pooja, we had bombing of the Mariupol airport today morning. There were precision strikes, no noise of any aircraft in the vicinity. There were precision strikes carried out by Russian military. An hour back, there were 4 explosions very close to where I'm reporting right now. I'm in the city center of Mariupol, and these explosions most likely were from artillery shells, because we are just about 13 kilometers from the Russian-held territory right now, and any artillery fire in that area, you can hear it here. But these explosions looked really near, very close by. Streets are more or less empty. The center here, no people around. Not long queues outside ATM, people trying to withdraw money, and outside currency exchange shops. People want to buy as much euro and as much dollars as possible. And also a lot of people being seen carrying a lot of big bags, buying groceries for supermarkets. That is what is here as of now. Pooja.
Streets, panic buying there in Ukraine, specifically in Mariupol, where the explosions can be heard, tanks can be seen speeding on the street. I want to thank Maria and Rajesh. Stay safe. I'll come back to you shortly. Because remember, it's a morning that every citizen dreads. For Ukrainians, it's now a living reality, what would be a nightmare for others. Russia is at its eastern border, shelling right now as we speak, while Ukrainians have now realized there is a war at the door. Take a look at this ground report coming in.
The dawn of Thursday in Kiev was not a promising one. In the capital city of Ukraine, people woke up to the sounds of sirens. Nearly 850 kilometers away from the capital city in Luhansk, near the line of control in eastern Ukraine, long queues outside banks was the commonplace scenario this Thursday morning. The same was the case in Mariupol, in Donetsk region.
Куда, сын, на работе я одна? Куда мне бежать? Куди ховатися? Куди? Скажіть, будь ласка. Ой, Боже мой, Боже.
Ukraine is under martial law.
Военное положение. А что паника, что? Паника? Конечно, всем страшно. Дети, куда детей девать? Куда прятаться? Куда деваться? Убежищ нету, ничего нету. Ровное место. Куда? Телевизор. Свое жилье должны покидать. Что это такое?
More than 10 hours drive away from Mariupol in Kiev, there were long lines of traffic on the road.
A lot of military actually going here in the street. This is like the local defense unit and a lot of police and also National Guard. This is the metro station, central metro station, Kashatik station, which was supposed to be used as a bomb shelter, but no need to use it for now.
Despite repeated calls by the Indian government, some Indian students are still stuck in Ukraine in the middle of this conflict.
As you can see, we are standing in the queue from 1 hour, maybe more, for the groceries. Yes. We are even can't find the bread or something. keeping the food and water for 2 or 3 days because our neighbors also said keep the food, water, everything ready. Maybe there will be blackout in the night.
Close to 500 kilometers from the capital city, smoke was seen over Kharkiv city and sounds of explosions were reported, much like what happened before dawn in Kiev. Instagram users shared videos of shelling in Ukraine on Thursday after Russian troops launched their anticipated attack. It's a war in Ukraine.
So it is clearly complete chaos and uncertainty for people in Ukraine. Now, heading into a very short break. Don't go anywhere. India Today is the only Indian channel in the real war zone in Ukraine. So getting you verified, correct information, but after a very short break. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.
You are watching India Today.
मौसम खराब की वजह से दुश्मन इन्फिल्ट्रेशन करने की फिराक में है तो हमारा एआर के अंदर एक पेट्रोलिंग का टास्क मिला है
During the harsh winters on the line of control, most of the areas remain cut off due to the heavy snowfall. Temperature dips down to minus 20 degrees centigrade during the night. How the brave hearts of Indian Army are guarding the nation in these harsh winters. I am Ashraf Wani with video journalist Rauf Ahmed, bringing you ground report from LOC.
Grounded in journalism, on the ground reporting, only on India Today TV.
This is Ukraine's true danger zone. This is where gun firing and artillery firing has begun. After a perilous 14-hour train journey from Kiev, India Today reports from the real war zone. Only channel in the rebel combat zone.
Barricades that have been set up, and beyond those barricades is the deployment of the Russian army.
Up close and fearless in Ukraine's combat zone.
You are watching India Today. You are watching India Today.
A quick look now at all the top developments coming in from Ukraine, because Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has addressed the nation from an undisclosed location. In a video message, Zelensky is asking citizens not to panic and assured that he is seeking a coalition with the world leaders to impose sanctions on Russia. Ukraine, meanwhile, has also decided and announced to sever all diplomatic ties with Russia. The announcement was made by the Ukrainian president and has also appealed to the Russians to stage protest against Moscow's decision to invade, making an appeal in his Twitter reaction to those still with a conscience to act swiftly. Just hours after Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered troops into eastern Ukraine, NATO envoys have convened an emergency session meeting to discuss the situation. NATO has called the escalation a grave breach of international law and a serious threat to Euro-Atlantic security. The United States and other UNSC members, meanwhile, have slammed Russia and said that Putin has delivered a message of war in a total disdain for the responsibility to the Council. The UNSC has called the invasion a grave emergency and continued to urge Russia to give peace a chance. But the impact of this war, crude oil prices have surged, hitting a record 7-year high as fear over the energy supplies are now escalating. Brent crude has now risen to $103.91 a barrel, and crude jumping to 7% to $98.53 a barrel. Russia, remember, is the world's second largest oil exporter and a top natural gas producer. Heading into a very short break, but don't go anywhere because we continue to bring you updates from the ground. Shiv Arur from 5 p.m. throughout the evening to help you understand what actually is happening on ground in Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.
You are watching India Today.
What is there outside of Earth? Space, infinite space. And did you know the race to conquer space has been man's never-ending struggle? Of strategic and political significance, the conquest of space generated intense competition between the US and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. In 1957, the Soviets were first to place a satellite, Sputnik, into orbit. A few weeks later, a dog became the first living creature in space. Laika unfortunately didn't survive the journey. In 1961, Soviet astronaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human to orbit the Earth. In 1963, his compatriot Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman in space. In 1969, the Apollo 11 mission made it possible for Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to walk on the moon. In the 1970s, competition gave way to US-Soviet cooperation. Apollo and Soyuz capsules docked in orbit. In those days, man was also dreaming of Mars. In 1976, US probes Viking 1 and 2 landed on the Red Planet. The following year, space probes Voyager 1 and 2 lifted off on their mission to explore the solar system. In 1981, the era of reusable spacecraft began. This period was marked by disasters for Challenger in 1986 and Columbia in 2003. The Hubble telescope was launched in 1990. The construction of the International Space Station began 400 kilometers above the Earth, making long stays in space possible. In 2001, space was no longer the preserve of defense and science. The first tourist in space, American Dennis Tito, relaxed in the ISS. Since the start of the century, new private companies have shaken up the space industry. SpaceX and Blue Origin are developing reusable spacecraft to return to the moon and one day Mars.
What is virus mutation? A virus mutates when there is a change to its genome, the set of instructions that contains the information it needs to function. Mutation occurs when the virus is inside a host, like a human body, and begins to replicate. During replication, the genome is copied. Now, sometimes there's a mistake in the copying process. Where the mistakes occur within the genome will determine the impact on the virus' ability to survive or continue to replicate. All viruses go through some form of mutation. Some viruses are better than others, but most mutations have no impact on the properties of the virus. Mutation could make a virus.
with LIC, हर पल आपके साथ. Tata AIG General Insurance. Volkswagen Tiger, Hustle.
Thanks for staying with India Today's non-stop coverage of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The offensive has begun. It's been on for the last few hours. Quick recap of the headlines we're tracking at 5 p.m. Multiple explosions reported across Ukraine. Russia claims to neutralize Ukraine air defense. Ukraine claims to destroy 50 Russian troops and 7 aircraft. Total meltdown in Ukraine. Panic buying on the streets. Long queues outside ATMs. Massive traffic jams reported in capital city of Kiev. Russian invasion or offensive has mega global economic impact. Sensex closes down 2,702 points. It's the second largest fall ever. Crude oil prices hit a 7-year high. Prime Minister Modi to hold an emergency meet on Ukraine crisis with Home Minister, Raksha Mantri, Finance Minister and National Security Advisor in addition to the military chiefs. India issues advisory to nationals stranded in the Ukraine. Asks everyone to stay in their homes or hostels. MEA sets up 24/7 control room. Ukraine envoy seeks Modi's intervention. India Today continues to be the only Indian channel reporting from every key region in Ukraine, including Donbass, which is under attack. Also Kiev to Mariupol. Your channel brings you all the latest from ground zero, uncompromising, fearless war reporting that's being rewarded with the highest viewership today.
What we're able to see on ground: 1, explosions; 2, military movement; 3, a lot of emergency vehicles moving in this area; 4, people being asked to stay where they are as much as possible.
And we've got a big news break coming in from Ukraine. The Ukraine Ministry of Defense has made a huge claim. Ukraine has made a stunning claim that it has captured 2 Russian soldiers alive. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine has posted pictures of 2 Russian soldiers who it claims have been captured alive from Unit 91701 of the Yampol Motorized Rifle Regiment. Pictures of 2 Russian soldiers on your screen for the first time here on India Today, claimed by Ukraine to be captives who've been taken by the Ukraine forces during the conflict in the east. Stunning escalation, huge claim by the Ukrainian government through its Ministry of Defense. It says that these 2 individuals are Russian soldiers who've been captured alive and taken as prisoners of war, really, in the current conflict. This entire crisis is escalating minute by minute, hour by hour. Ankit Kumar, live with me on this big breaking story. Ankit, take us through the details. This is an official statement, official release by the Ukrainian government. They've put out these pictures of these 2 soldiers and said that the Ukrainian forces have taken them captive. Is that correct?
Well, Shiv, the Office of the General Staff of Ukrainian Armed Forces have released these 2 pictures claiming that their Air Force have captured 2 Russian soldiers within Ukrainian territory. Now, there is still no formal word from the Russian side. We are waiting for it. But Ukrainian officials, Ukrainian armed forces have now posted out pictures. They are officially claiming that they now have in their captivity 2 Russian soldiers. You remember earlier today in the morning when we were speaking to our Ukrainian sources, they have been claiming that firing cruise missiles is all right, but can Putin hold on to the grounds that he is now trying to claim? And this is where it gets now, because now Russian soldiers are face to face with the Ukrainian soldiers on the ground, whether it's in the eastern Ukraine or in the northern part along the boundary of Belarus. As of now, Ukraine is claiming that it has now in their custody at least 2 Russian soldiers captured by the Ukrainian Air Force. Some more details, Shiv. These are from the Ukrainian sources. They are saying they are from the 4th Tank Division, a battalion tactical group of the 423rd Motorized Rifle Regiment that is based out of Moscow Oblast. So these details are coming from Ukrainian sources, not from Russian sources. Russia is still to issue an official word whether these claims are correct or not. But as of now, we have 2 pictures of 2 alleged Russian soldiers, armed forces personnel, who are now in custody of Ukraine.
In custody of Ukraine. No word yet from the Russian side Ankit, on this? Is that what you said? No confirmation from the Russian side about the identity of these two soldiers who've been claimed captive by the Ukrainians?
No confirmation from the Russian side. The Russian state media is silent on this. We are expecting that there will be some kind of clarity later in the day. But for now, this is based entirely on an official release put out by the Office of the General Staff of Ukrainian Armed Forces. Sure.
Okay, very, very big escalation. Prisoners of war claimed to be taken. A lot of misinformation coming in, but the Ukrainians have put out very clear pictures. The identities of the soldiers, also visible, on their name tags as well. So it's pretty clear that the Russians will have to react to this. They will have to, put out information about who these men are. 2 men claim to have been taken captive by Ukrainian forces. Images on your screen also of bombardments that are taking place in different parts of Ukraine. Those are images from Kiev, where a facility has been bombed as well. More disturbing images coming in from Kiev of a missile strike. These are images from different parts of the country. This missile strike is not Kiev. We've marked that wrong. I'll get that changed in just a minute. There are different cities where different attacks are taking place, where these dramatic images are coming in from. Let's quickly remind our viewers of the top 5 developments. We're updating this every half hour because that's how fast this story is moving in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Ukraine claims Russian troops are moving towards Kiev. Ukraine claims Russia is attacking its port city of Odessa. Big claims coming in from Ukraine. Remember, at this time, Russia says there are no boots on the ground. There are only standoff strikes taking place. But Ukraine says that's not true. Russia is lying to the world, and Russia is rolling towards Kiev. Ukraine says many Russian warships are part of the operations, and from out at sea, they are launching fire attacks on the port cities of Odessa, Mariupol, and others. Ukraine says heavy weapons are being used by Russia as well as part of an escalation in hostilities. Much more firepower being brought to bear in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. That's the new list of allegations by Ukraine that is currently under heavy attack by Russia. We're going to take you straight to Mariupol in just a couple of minutes from now, where India Today's Rajesh Pawar and Gaurav Sawant have been reporting live. Rajesh is through with me from Mariupol. Very dramatic images continuing to stream in, Rajesh, of damage being done, explosions, shells landing, missiles hitting. In Mariupol, we are told that some, offshore bombardments have also been taking place from warships. Russian warships apparently targeting places like Odessa and Mariupol. Any confirmation on that? What is the situation on the ground? Have things gotten worse?
Listen, Shiv, I was to the sea. I'm just about half a kilometer away from the sea right now. There are no warships here right now in the Sea of Azov, which is on the banks of which this city is located. As far as explosions are concerned, I heard 4 explosions, which I thought came from the Russian side. But now, what I get to hear from the local people, these were probably counter-fire by the Ukrainian troops onto Donbass, onto Russian-held areas. These explosions were very close to me when I was standing there. And besides that, now it is calm. There is no fire here. There's no explosion as of now. For last 2 hours, things are more or less okay. Over to you, Shiv.
Okay, things are more or less okay, but bombardments are still happening. The images are very troubling at this point of time. Warships are said to be launching attacks, from out at sea at places like Odessa and elsewhere. The overall number of images coming in from Ukraine suggests that the standoff strikes that are taking place are continuing and possibly escalating as well. Rajesh, through your networks, what are you hearing about what's happening elsewhere? Because the images, putting aside the propaganda images of vehicles rolling in, because, those can't be authenticated or verified at this time. But the other places where there are clearly fire attacks taking place, shells landing, missiles landing, what are you hearing about that?
Shiv, I have been in touch with people. I have been in touch with friends in Moscow, in Odessa, in Kyiv, everywhere. And I've been asking continuously about the situation in those areas. There were reports of amphibious landings in Odessa today morning. which has not been confirmed by any local living very close to the port in Odessa. It has not been confirmed, I repeat. Secondly, there were reports of 6 aircrafts of Russian Air Force and a helicopter downed by the Ukrainian air defense. Till now, no authentic pictures of any of these aircrafts or their debris has come from anywhere so far. So it's very difficult in these times to ascertain what is true and what is not true unless you get to hear from people who have seen it firsthand. Over to you, Shiv.
Rajesh, thanks. Continue to stay with me. The NATO is holding a press conference right now. First words from the NATO since the crisis broke out today. Let's cut across and listen into the NATO.
How shall we continue to defend and protect allies in this new security reality? And how can we make sure that we uphold the values we believe in, freedom, democracy, faced with a more aggressive authoritarian regime in Moscow? A regime which is willing to openly contest our values and to threat and actually also use force to try to coerce other nations. So this will have some long-term effects on our security, on how we respond, on how NATO is reacting, and also on how our relationship with Russia can evolve. We don't have all the answers today, but there will be a new reality. It will be a new Europe after the invasion we saw today. And therefore I welcome the fact that we are so closely coordinating, so closely working together in NATO. We stood together in warning against the Russian aggression, the plans. We stood together in reaching out to Russia and try to prevent the attack. And now we need to stand together in responding to the attack. And that's exactly what we are doing. That was the first question. The second question? Well, that's part of this new reality we have to look into. And there will be a different reality, and we need to respond. But this is not the day to draw the conclusions. But we will have an important discussion among leaders tomorrow.
And okay.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Secretary General, today Ukraine has called on Turkey to close the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles Straits for Russian vessels. Is that an action that was discussed in this morning's meeting, and are there other similar actions that have been discussed today?
That was not discussed in the meeting today. Turkey is, of course, a NATO ally. Turkey has a special role when it comes to the Bosporus Straits, but this was not an issue in the meeting this morning. What we discussed this morning was the need to activate the defense plans. We made a decision to activate those plans, which enables to move forces more quickly to where they are needed, and also to agree a statement where we express a very strong condemnation of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and also announced that we were going to have a NATO summit, a virtual NATO summit tomorrow.
Wall Street Journal. Dan Michaels, Wall Street Journal, thank you for the question. Could you talk a little bit more about the activation of the defense plans? What exactly does this?
Gaurav Sawant continues to be with us from Mariupol. One of the cities which is under attack, a place where very dramatic images have been coming in. Gaurav, situation on the ground, give us an update. And also, more and more updates coming in on attacks on more cities of Ukraine.
Shiv, multiple cities now in Ukraine are under attack. Where I am in Mariupol, there has been a series of artillery exchanges and barrages that we can actually hear very loudly where we are. Massive movement of men and material taking place towards the borders even as we speak. And just a short while back, an additional convoy was sent, which is an indication that perhaps now the Ukrainian forces are sending in either additional replenishment or additional forces that they did not anticipate the kind of assault that would come from the Russian side, resulting in more troops, more tanks and more armored personnel carriers being sent. Also fuel oil, lubricants, their convoys also just went. So this is all an indication that they're strengthening themselves at the line of control here. And this is actually being called line of control between Donetsk, that is held by the Ukrainians, and Donetsk and Luhansk, that's being held by the Russians. So that is where that line is, where trench warfare is happening even as we speak. In their artillery barrages, in their missile attacks, they've also targeted the airport here, and all movement in and out of this place has now stalled. So no flights out of here, no trains out of here, no road movement out of here, because roads are also being closed, as locals are telling us, only for movement of military convoys at this point of time. And this is just in one location. Multiple cities in Ukraine being targeted, whether it is Kiev, around Kiev, the airfields have been targeted. The effort of the Russians is to suppress the adversaries' air defenses completely. Of course, Ukraine also claiming that they have shot down at least 7 Russian aircraft and helicopters that were trying to target and take over various airfields close to Kiev. And including a Mi-8 helicopter is the information that just came in a short while back. There have been bombs that have gone off or explosions that have been heard around Kiev. Now, the Ukrainians claim there has been loss of life, 10 civilians, 40 soldiers. They also claim that they've killed 50 Russian soldiers. Now, this does appear to becoming more intense than what it was initially when it started. We are also now being told, Shiv, that attacks from the sea have started, not the Sea of Azov just as yet, but around Odessa. We are being told that they've used their sea flotilla to target Ukrainian territory, Shiv.
There are very, very unsettling images that we have on our screen right now on India Today. These are images that are said to be from Kiev, the capital. What I can see on my screens right now, let me interpret it for our viewers. I can see 5 or 6, Russian Mi-17 helicopters. They look like Mi-17 helicopters from this distance, but they could be something else. But these images are said to be from Kiev. It's been sent to us by a Ukrainian member of parliament. These are pictures, first and exclusive here on India Today. I want to tell our viewers to make the usual disclaimer that there are videos of this kind coming out, but this has been authenticated and sent to us by a Ukrainian MP. But India Today does not vouch for the authenticity by ourselves, but a Ukrainian MP has said that he has shot this video himself and has called it a massive attack of our airport, Hostomel in Kiev. Very, very dramatic images of a huge attack on Kiev's Hostomel airport. There are 6 to 7 helicopters, all flying very close together, either as part of an airstrike or insertion of troops. It is not clear from this distance, but there's a huge plume of smoke there as well, which was possibly done via a missile strike. What precisely these helicopters are doing is not very clear. Are they carrying troops? Are they armed helicopters that are conducting offensive operations? Not very clear. But I want to see if we can get some sound in from this video for a moment, and then let's get in our viewers. Let's get into Gaurav from the ground.
Это пиздец. Это просто пиздец.
War images. These are images of war coming in, very, very dramatic, captured and sent by a Ukrainian MP. That's what he's told us. India Today's Gaurav Sawant continues to be with me. Gaurav, very, very dramatic image. We've shared this image with you, Gaurav. You can see it on your phone as well, of 6 to 7 what are claimed to be Russian helicopters, huge plume of smoke. Hostomel airport of Kiev, where you landed, more than a week ago, is under attack, apparently, according to the Ukrainian MP who sent us these images, Gaurav.
Shiv, the Ukrainian MP is insisting that this is a Russian air assault, an airborne assault that is taking place right now in Kiev. Now, the aim is to take over both airfields in Kiev. One is Borispil, where civilian flights land. Of course, the entire airspace across Ukraine now sealed only for military movement. And this is where Russian helicopters have come in. The question at this point of time is it authentic in terms of one Russian helicopter being shot down? So this was a group of 8 that were coming in for quick insertion. Is the information that is coming in subject to verification at this stage? Because in the fog, the story that we are getting here in Ukraine. So multiple helicopters came in to drop troops, to take over the airfield and to suppress the adversary's air defenses, the Ukrainian air defenses, in which we are told one helicopter was shot down. So in all, the Ukrainians are claiming that they've shot down 7 aircraft and helicopters since morning, since these operations started. That's one part of the story, Shiv. Second part is repeated targeting of vital assets and vital points, strategic assets of Ukraine by the Russian forces, and precision guided munition being fired to take them down, including various airfields, airports, and a very critical ammunition dump that has been destroyed, which was seen as one of the central ammunition dumps that was supplying ammunition to various places. So based apparently on good intelligence, the Russians are targeting these vital points and vital assets and ammunition dumps to be able to ensure that the Ukrainian forces are not able to sustain this campaign when the real Russian assault comes in the days ahead, perhaps.
You know, Hostomel Airport in Kiev is apparently under attack. If these images are indeed authentic, and there's no reason to believe that they're not. They've been sent by a Ukrainian MP, even though there's a great deal of misinformation on both sides. These images going viral right now, sent to us, vouched for by a Ukrainian MP who says these are images of an air assault, an airborne, heli-borne assault by Russian forces on the Hostomel Airport in Kiev. It's the international airport where passenger planes land. Airspace anyway has shut down. This looks like Putin sending in his forces to take control of a key airport into Ukraine. And it's the only big international airport in Ukraine. Gaurav, you had landed in Hostomel Airport, a week ago. This is where these helicopters appear to be launching this assault on. They from this distance, they look like utility helicopters carrying troops, Gaurav. They may not be armed. They may be utility helicopters. This could be a troop insertion effort to inject troops who will then take control of the airfield. Are you assessing the same, Gaurav?
Oh, absolutely, Shiv. That appears to be the effort at this point of time, and which is what analysts were also telling us on ground, that the effort appears to be to take control of Ukraine's airfields, and that would deny any air power. In fact, the member of parliament you were speaking to, Shiv, he also indicated that the only thing Ukraine required from the world at this point of time was effective air defense against a Russian air assault. Because that is where Ukraine was found lacking and wanting, and this is perhaps the advantage to which Russia is playing at this point. So this information about 7 Russian aircraft and helicopters being shot down is subject to verification. Some videos were, of course, released. Again, like you said, like this video, we are waiting for authentication of those videos. But ground situation extremely precarious in Kiev, in Kharkiv, in the place that we are right now, in Mariupol, and of course the Donetsk region entirely, Shiv, where intelligence-based, apparently very precise operations are being undertaken. Countermeasures by Ukraine, we are still waiting to hear onto the other side, but defensive action very clearly visible on ground, Shiv.
Gaurav, I'm going to show our viewers what these images look like up close once again, because they are very, very compelling. The images of what appears to be a heli-borne assault exclusive to India today. They've been sent to us by a Ukrainian MP. These images, just take a look at these images of what appear to be Russian helicopters in an airborne assault on the Hostomel Airport in Kiev. These images have been shot from, a fair distance away. But I just want to take our viewers through what they're looking at. These appear to be medium lift helicopters of the Russian army or the Air Force that are flying in formation. They're flying pretty low there. There's a huge plume of smoke, across which they're flying. There's a bridge that they're flying towards as well. And, where this video actually ends is not known. But these helicopters are seen to be flying very close to the site of a missile attack. It is conjectured at this time that they're carrying troops, possibly even commandos, to inject them into the airport complex where the Russian forces are looking to take control of Kiev's Hostomel International Airport. Now, this would be a pretty standard airborne assault drill, but for it to be captured in this manner at a time where a missile strike has already apparently taken place in Kiev, bombings have happened, a lot of damage has already been done. This is Russia taking control of this enemy country's biggest international airport in the capital city of Kiev. This is offensive action of the extreme. They're taking control of a terminal, a place from which people can leave the country and enter the country. They're taking control of it. Remember, we've seen things exactly like this happen in Afghanistan as well, Gaurav. And we're seeing it playing out in a country like Ukraine now. These helicopters all flying, just a few hundred feet in the air, it looks like. Not very high, in formation, flying slowly. Doesn't appear to be an attack helicopter. Medium lift helicopters, most certainly carrying troops and weaponry, and all headed towards that airport. This is, the wheels of war are turning, Gaurav, and so are the wings.
Shiv, and this then is an indication that the air defense capabilities of Ukraine aren't being able to take them down. The confidence with which these 8 helicopters are flying in close formation, carrying troops, if at all, these utility helicopters are an indication that there is no fear of an attack from the ground, and they are in control of the airspace to be able to fly in these helicopters. If they're not, also accompanied by attack helicopters or fighter jets, this just goes on to show that Russia is in control of at least this part. And Shiv, as we see, there are more movement taking place at this point of time on this road, which is the high street. Every few minutes, you see military movement. Every few minutes, and very fast-paced military movement is taking place where we are. An indication that Russian President Vladimir Putin is actually going ahead with what he said would be dismantling and demilitarizing Ukraine. So it very, very clearly appears to be that game plan appears to be underway as we speak.
Gaurav, any such air activity you're seeing where you are right now? Any such air activity?
In the morning, yes. Right now, no. In the morning, fighter jets, of course, it's an overcast sky, so you can only hear and not see. And none of the helicopters are flying so low to evade radars that they will radar or fly so close. So all over in this territory, no air activity taking place here. And this is an indication that there appears to be a very, very organized plan in terms of going after Kiev first. So regime change, as Vladimir Putin wants, is what his aim is. This is a region that he appears to be, the Russians appear to be fairly confident that they will be able to move forward. But this is also an area which is being very stoutly defended by the Ukrainian army that has been very well deployed in this territory since 2014. So this is where the Ukrainian army is very well entrenched, very well deployed, may be able to hold on to some of its territory. But was the north then more vulnerable, and is that being exploited by the Russians at this point of time is the big question, Shiv.
These are extremely compelling images. It is sad to have to report conflict of this kind in a country like Ukraine or anywhere else really, but to see a country that has so far been peaceful, with an air assault happening in its capital city, with a huge plume of smoke after a missile attack happening in the heart of its national capital is truly distressing. I cannot imagine what the people of Ukraine are going through right now. Families of Indians based in Kiev and elsewhere in Ukraine will be extremely anxious. And I promise you that here on India Today, we will only bring you the facts. We will not sensationalize what is already an extremely dark reality that is playing out. No amount of exaggeration can make war worse than it already is. And conflict is something that should have been the last resort, but that last resort is very much here, and it's totally playing out here on your screens. This image, I need to say this, it's an image that you're not going to see anywhere else, because a Ukrainian MP that we've been in touch with has sent us these pictures exclusively. They're only with us, and he tells us this is an airborne assault on the Hostomel airport in Kiev. And these images suggest that the Russians, who so far have said this is not an invasion, only standoff strikes are taking place, well, this would completely debunk that claim that this is not an invasion, because if the Russians are sending troops in via helicopter to take control of air bases or in airports like Hostomel in Kiev, it suggests that this is most definitely an invasion. There are elements of taking control of territory, of assets, of establishments, of airports. That is very much part of any invasion. Ankit Kumar also continues to be with me. Ankit, airspace completely shut, but the Russian forces appear headed towards taking control of Kiev's international airport. What are you hearing from all the online hotlines? You're also in touch with the Ukrainian military.
Well, Shiv, claims and counterclaims are continue to come in from both sides. What has just happened is that sources from Ukraine have sent us a video which shows a flurry of helicopters, basically attack helicopters, hovering over this airport. Now, the armed forces of Ukraine have shared another angle of the same video. They are now claiming that they have shot down 2 more Russian helicopters. We do not know what kind of Russian helicopters they are claiming to be, but now just only a few minutes back, armed forces, again the general staff of the land forces of Ukrainian army has claimed that Ukrainian forces have shot down 2 more helicopters near this airport. These are the Google Earth images. You can see the runway. Now, these are definitely not today's satellite imagery. So these are older images. But as you can see, this is just nearby the residential areas. And from these images, you can see two airstrips. This is one. This is another. The video that we are showing probably belongs to this area.
Yeah.
And Ukrainian government sources are now claiming that Russia launched based on using attack helicopters. Now that they know that Ukraine does not have a lot of firepower in terms of air defense, they are now using low-flying attack helicopters. And Ukrainian sources are now officially claiming now, that they have shot down 2 more Ukrainian choppers. Now, we do not know what's the reality, because Russia is still to make an official statement. State-affiliated Russian media has not broadcasted or released any kind of statement citing MOD officials or sources from Russia, but Ukrainian officials are now claiming on record that this airport was under heavy attack by the chopper group, attack helicopter group from Russia. And what they have managed to do is that they have managed to shot down 2 of Russian helicopters around this airport.
Are they saying, Ankit, that they've shot down 2 of the helicopters that are possibly in this video? Have the helicopters been shot down in Kiev?
Well, one of the videos that we will just show you in a couple of minutes has been tweeted by official handles of Ukrainian army. And in that video, one can see a kind of explosion. So Russian army at least is now officially claiming that they have indeed shot down 2 more helicopters. Now, again, these are claims made by one side. We cannot independently verify whether these are true or not. But these claims are now being made by official handles of Ukrainian army.
Okay, so that's an important disclaimer that Ankit is making. We cannot vouch for the authenticity of these videos, but they are being tweeted by official government handles in Ukraine, and Ukrainian MPs are putting these videos out from their verified official handles. Ankit and Gaurav, stay with me. Let's listen in for a moment. Let's keep these images on our screen. Listen in to Rajnath Singh, Defense Minister, on what he has to say on the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Here's the Indian Raksha Mantri.
वैसे वैसा है कि वैसे सरकार ने पहले भी एडवाइजरी जारी की थी और साथ ही उनको बाहर निकालने की व्यवस्था सरकार ने कुछ की है, प्लेन्स वगैरह भेजे गए हैं, लेकिन वहाँ की ऐसी स्थिति है कि अब शायद जहाँ तक मुझे जानकारी है कि अभी प्लेन लैंड नहीं कर पा रहा है, लेकिन उसको लेकर सरकार चिंतित है और जो भी एफर्ट संभव था हमारी सरकार ने किया है और आगे भी जो एफर्ट्स होंगे अपने भारतवासियों को बचाने के लिए हम करेंगे।
Gaurav, Gaurav, the Russians insist that this is not an invasion, this is a standoff strike, no boots on the ground, only missile and air attacks from outside Ukrainian territory. But these images completely debunk that. If you've got helicopters of the Russian Federation in Ukrainian airspace, they're about to land or have already landed. Ankit has information that a couple of those helicopters have apparently been shot down or claimed to be shot down by the Ukrainians. Then this goes against what the Russians are saying. This is an invasion.
This truly is, and Ukraine has been saying this from early this morning, that the invasion has started, the invasion has begun, and we are at war. Russia has invaded Ukraine. This helicopter, in fact, just a short while back, this was confirmed by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense that they had shot down a Russian helicopter over Kiev. They said so in as many words, Shiv. But again, they did not put out any picture to show the debris of that fallen Mi-8 helicopter is what they were claiming, or what was being claimed from the Ukrainian side, that a Mi-8 helicopter of the Russians had been shot down, but several others were coming in. And the point that multiple helicopters were coming in was an indication, without attack helicopters supporting them or fighter aircraft, seemed that it's like an indication that the Russians were in control of the airspace. Otherwise, why would transport helicopters come in unaccompanied in an environment where the adversary or where Ukrainians have just been armed with a number of new weapons by the Americans and other NATO forces? So this is, they may call it defensive weapons. Russian President Vladimir Putin calls them offensive weapons. But, the anti-tank guided missiles, the other missiles that have been given to the Ukrainian army, a lot of training has been on for quite some time now. A lot of those new equipment have not only been deployed, but apparently are also in use.
An airborne assault. These aircraft apparently unescorted as they fly into Ukraine's capital of Kiev from Russia, carrying troops perhaps. Ukrainian MPs telling us that these helicopters have basically headed toward the Hostomel airport in Kiev to take control of it. There is information coming out from Ukraine's official channels to suggest that one or two of these helicopters have even been shot down. There is this flurry of claims and counterclaims, and I want to constantly put out this disclaimer because viewers in India are trusting us in their thousands, and I don't want anyone to think that we are simply lapping up the information that's coming up from Ukraine. The disclaimer here is constantly that we are reporting the facts, and we will only and always give you caveats where we think something may not be authentic. But this is being put out by official channels. The UK Prime Minister, British Prime Minister speaking. Let's listen in.
Recent months at Russian intimidation, that the UK allies have now done the same, and we will do what more we can in the days ahead. Today, in concert with our allies, we will agree a massive package of economic sanctions designed in time to hobble the Russian economy. And to that end, we must also collectively cease the dependence on Russian oil and gas that for too long has given Putin his grip on Western politics. Our mission is clear. Diplomatically, politically, economically, and eventually militarily, this hideous and barbaric venture of Vladimir Putin must end in failure. And so I say to the people of Russia, whose president has just authorized a tidal wave of violence against a fellow Slavic people, as the parents of Russian soldiers who will lose their lives, I cannot believe this is being done in your name, or that you really want the pariah status it will bring to the Putin regime. And I say to the Ukrainians in this moment of agony, we're praying for you and your families, and we are on your side. And if the months ahead are grim and the flame of freedom burns low, I know that it will blaze bright again in Ukraine, because for all his bombs and tanks and missiles, I don't believe that the Russian dictator will ever subdue the national feeling of the Ukrainians and their passionate belief that their country should be free. I say to the British people and all who have heard the threats from Putin against those who stand with Ukraine, we will, of course, do everything to keep our country safe. We're joined in our outrage by friends and allies around the world. We will work with them for however long it takes to ensure that the sovereignty and independence of Ukraine is restored. Because this act of wanton and reckless aggression is an attack not just on Ukraine, it's an attack on democracy and freedom in Eastern Europe and around the world. This crisis is about the right of a free, sovereign, independent European people to choose their own future. And that is a right that the UK will always defend.
Saying that he stands with Ukraine. How exactly the West stands with Ukraine is unclear at this point of time, apart from a stream of sanctions that have been applied. But now when Ukraine is fully under attack, with an invasion on in full strength, with an air assault happening on the country's international airport, which has economic and trade implications for many NATO countries themselves, Boris Johnson only says that we are in solidarity with Ukraine. No information about any NATO, counter or attack on what has happened over the last 11 hours in Ukraine. The attacks and counterattacks are taking place in different parts of the country. There is no question of which country is stronger. Russia is overwhelmingly more powerful militarily. The question is, will NATO nations, the alliance to which Ukraine was aspiring to and is at the heart of this entire conflict, will the NATO come to the aid of Ukraine, or will it simply pay lip service and say we stand with Ukraine and blah, 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 and things like that, and not really do very much other than impose sanctions? That's the big question right now. I'm speaking from the Ukrainian perspective. We'll also get you a Russian perspective right now, because Russia says this is a war of principle. It's a war of to make it clear to the world that we will not have NATO on our doorstep. That's what this is. The Ukrainian MP who has shared this video exclusively with India Today joins me live now from Kiev. Maria Lonova is the Ukrainian MP who has shared this video. That's a very, very disturbing, unsettling video that you've sent us. Maria, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out at this very difficult time for your country to be with us. Can you describe for us, where this video has been taken from? Did you shoot this video? What are we looking at, Maria?
Thank you for your question. So now Russia, Putin, they attacked Ukraine from different sides, from the sea, from the air, from land troops. So it's almost from 10 regions of Ukraine. So some of the towns in Lugansk Oblast, unfortunately under control of Russia Federation in Lugansk Oblast. But on all other fronts, our armed forces are fighting. 1 hour ago, we again had huge rocket attacks on some places in Kiev. Also, there is a border destroying from Zhytomyr Oblast, from Kiev Oblast, Kharkiv Oblast, and that video was as Russia helicopters they attacking our airport near Kiev. It's just 10 kilometers from Kiev. It's this airport, it is famous because of our great airplane Mriya dream. So it's the biggest airplane on the world. It's Ukrainian, and of course now sanctions, they will not save human lives, and that is why now it's time really to help by military.
very busy cargo air terminal. Can you explain to us why the Russians appear to be trying to take control of that airport, and are they trying to take control of the Kiev International Airport as well?
They because they would like to land their forces with the land troops and with the special forces of Russia Federation. As you know, we have now just huge amount of diversion groups. I mean, Russian soldiers who are uniformed in Ukrainian form. So special groups are in different regions now. And of course, Putin is now like demanding that Ukraine has to fail, to give up. That is why our soldiers are fighting, our people are fighting. We just really need very fast reaction of democratic countries, especially that countries who has signed assurance on Budapest Memorandum and guarantee the security of our country. And it's also USA, Britain, and that is why we have to close air. And we understand that NATO troops will not fight for us, but at least to defend from aviation, huge aviation and huge ballistic rockets. We need this. We need this defense system. At least, weapon to defend from this huge attack from the air. Sorry, I have to connect our Committee on Foreign Affairs because we are preparing a statement and addressing to all the world. And that is why I'm sorry that I couldn't be with you more, but I promise that I will return to you, okay? And we will give an update, okay?
Very much appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay safe, stay safe, Maria. We will come back to you. We will come back to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sending us that video that gives you a real impression of the Hostomel happens to be a suburb of Kiev. It's about 10 kilometers away towards the north. These are images shared with us by the Ukrainian MP who you just heard. Maria Lonova tells us this is a video that she's procured from near Hostomel of Russian helicopters, she claims, that have taken over that base. It's a large airport where a lot of military testing takes place. One of the world's largest aircraft, the AN-225, is also based at that airbase. It's of Ukrainian origin, made by the famous company Antonov. And this is where para commandos of the Russian forces apparently appear to be landing to take over that base. And then Maria, the Ukrainian MP, Maria Lonova, says that becomes their base for air operations. They've taken over a base for Russian air operations. So Russian forces enter north of Kiev as confirmed by that video. It's incredible. It's incredible that things are moving so rapidly. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has said that they've managed to shoot down 2 helicopters. The evidence of that is not available just yet because this video abruptly cuts off before we can see very much where those helicopters are actually headed and landed at. But what the Ukrainian member of parliament who shared this video with us tells us is that they've headed towards the Hostomel airport to take it over. And once they've taken it over with commandos, with airfield security and sanitization, it basically means that the Russians, if successful, will have an entire military airbase for their use. They can land fighters, they can land bombers, they can land logistics aircraft to bring in troops in large numbers, at will. And the very fact that you're seeing helicopters flying so low in that area also appears to suggest that air defense in that part of Ukraine at least has been compromised. So you're not seeing any surface-to-air missiles or anti-aircraft gunnery, or weaponry of any kind, sort of challenging those helicopters. They're flying pretty low, they're flying pretty slow, and appear to be in uncontested airspace, as it were, towards the Hostomel airport. So this is big. This is going to be, possibly an air bridgehead. This is just north of Kiev. This is just north of Kiev where this is happening. And if they've got an airbase just north of Kiev, then Kiev, grabs. It's up for grabs in terms of any application of air power that Russia wants to use. I don't want to jump the gun and overanalyze a situation that's only based on one video. I am simply extrapolating and making an educated guess based on what we already have on our screens right now that's been shared officially by Ukrainian MPs. This video has been shared. A statement's been put out officially by the Ukrainian military as well. Rajesh Pawar continues to be with us from Mariupol in eastern Ukraine. Rajesh, very, very dramatic video footage being put out officially, shared by Ukrainian MPs of a fleet of Russian helicopters flying very low, huge column of smoke. Appears to be north of Ukraine. We saw those images of that smoke before as well, of that missile attack. And it is claimed that these helicopters are headed towards Hostomel Antonov Airport near Kiev. Are you hearing anything of the kind?
Yes, I heard this. I heard the MP speaking.
Yeah.
To me, it is a bit strange. I'm not denying the fact that she may be right and maybe she has taken this video herself. I don't know. But Kiev is not on the borders with Russian territory or Belarus or Ukraine. The nearest border from Kiev is that of Belarus, where Russian forces are there, which is about 90 miles by air. So the Russian helicopters coming inside so much, it indicates two things. One, either the complete surveillance system and anti-aircraft system, air defense of Ukraine has collapsed. And then their claim that they've shot down 7 aircrafts of Russia. Somehow these two claims do not match. There is some dichotomy here. Number two, I want to also update you with one more latest information coming from Russian media. Russian media has claimed 1 hour back that 2 of their civilian ships have been hit by Ukrainian missiles in Sea of Azov, which is just a kilometer away from where I'm reporting right now. Over to you, Shiv.
There are assaults happening from out at sea. There are heli-borne attacks that are taking place north of Kiev. These images are being authenticated by Ukrainian MPs who've shared them only with India today. And these images are painting a very worrying picture of what could happen next, because these pictures suggest that attacks could take place on Kiev. There have already been attacks in Kiev, but what next in terms of whether there could be airstrikes in Kiev, whether the international airport could be commandeered and taken over in a similar manner, whether, as Rajesh correctly pointed out, these images appear to confirm that air defense has been totally compromised. It is unclear, but very, very worrying, very unsettling. These images painting a disturbing picture of where things are at in Ukraine. We're taking a very quick break, leaving these pictures on your screens for you to digest. We're back in 30 seconds to take this story forward. Much more coming up. We'll have citizens and more MPs joining us from the ground in Ukraine and in Hostomel to take us through the story. Stay with India Today. Back in 30 seconds.
Crypto Watch brought to you by BitBNS.
मौसम खराब की वजह से दुश्मन इन्फिल्ट्रेशन करने की फिराक में है तो हमारा एआर के अंदर एक पेट्रोलिंग का टास्क मिला है.
During the harsh winters on the line of control, most of the areas remain cut off due to the heavy snowfall. Temperature dips down to minus 20 degrees centigrade during the night. How the brave hearts of Indian Army are guarding the nation in these harsh winters. I am Ashraf Wani with video journalist Rauf Ahmed, bringing you ground report from LOC.
Grounded in journalism, on the ground reporting, only on India Today TV.
This is Ukraine's true danger zone.
This is where gun firing and artillery firing has begun. After a perilous 14-hour train journey from Kiev, India Today reports from the real war zone. Only channel in the rebel combat zone.
Barricades that have been set up, and beyond those barricades is the deployment of the Russian army.
Up close and fearless in Ukraine's combat zone. This is Ukraine's true danger zone. This is where gun firing and artillery firing has begun. After a perilous 14-hour train journey from Kiev, India Today reports from the real war zone. Only channel in the rebel combat zone.
Barricades that have been set up, and beyond those barricades is the deployment of the Russian army.
Up close and fearless in Ukraine's combat zone.
You are watching India.
An all-out air assault by Russian Mi-8 helicopters just north of Kiev. First and exclusive here on India Today. Take a look at these images of what appear to be six Mi-8 helicopters of the Russian Federation flying low and slow over the northern suburb of Kiev and landing at the Hostomel airport, which is a military testing airport just north of Kiev. Images also of missiles or shells landing not very far from, from Kiev in Ukraine, the capital city. This is just going to be a situation that continues to escalate, ladies and gentlemen. Images of missiles landing or bombs or shells landing, must be missiles because Kiev is far from where shells can reach, from Russia. But these could be laser-guided bombs. And these dramatic images of a heli-borne assault with Russian helicopters headed towards a northern suburb of Kiev called Hostomel, where a large testing airport currently exists. It is there that Ukraine operates some of its largest aircraft. It's a military and aircraft testing establishment as well. And it is there that the Russians appear to be taking control of an airbase so they can operate their aircraft very close to the Ukrainian capital.
Вот еще летят. Это пиздец. Это просто пиздец.
Very important, crucial images that are on your screen right now. In a moment, we will have a reporter live from Kiev. Maria Paisarenko will be live with us in just a few minutes from now to take us through these images, because what they indicate, what they imply is that things have already reached a very, very dangerous point in Ukraine. And now take a look at the second set of images that we're bringing to you first and exclusive here on India Today. The same helicopters you saw just a moment ago. Here's another vantage point of the very same helicopters flying overhead. Someone in the flight path of those helicopters, has managed to capture those helicopters flying towards the Hostomel airport just north of Kiev. Very, very dramatic, almost apocalyptic images of Russian Mi-8 helicopters heading towards the Hostomel airport, where we are given to believe that they've taken control of that air station. It's an airport just north of Kiev. It's a large facility that the Russians appear to be wanting to take over so they can operate their own aircraft very close to the Ukrainian capital. Disturbing images of conflict, first and exclusive here on India Today. Okay, we're taking a very quick break. We're going to leave you with these images and we're going to come right back. Stay with us.
Tell me, what are the red flags? Is a huge valuation a red flag for you?
So a huge valuation is not generally a red flag. I think, it misrepresents something. Like, you have a understanding, like somebody tells that my product has authentic ingredients, but you read the ingredients and you question them about why their product has X, Y, Z, and they're not genuine about it. I think that is a huge red flag, because at the end of the day, the bet is on the person, not on the business.
How important is the name of a brand? When you're pitching a product, how important is that? And what is a good brand name?
The brand has the value. You are ascribing a certain value to the brand because the consumer is coming out there looking for it. She's going to a store, searching for a specific brand, or going to Amazon, searching for it. There, I think it becomes very important. So I think the best brand names are the simple ones, which are easy to remember. There's no risk of making spelling mistakes and typos, because you lose a lot of web traffic to, such brand names, which are very complicated. And third, I think they should evoke an emotion in the consumer, which is in the direction of what your product wants to evoke in terms of an emotion, but they needn't really include the features. I feel that simple brand names that make somebody feel a certain way work the best.
I also want to say one thing. There were a lot of older people also who came on Shark Tank and pitched their businesses, but it's mostly the younger guys who got the funding. So is there an age bias?
So one of the entrepreneurs I really look up to is actually Falguni Nair, who started her business when she was close to 50 years of age, and she's really successful. She's very unconventional. So I don't think there is any age barrier. In fact, a lot of companies started by older people got funding. Of course, there are certain categories.
Co-presented by PolicyBazaar.com. Co-powered by Philips Hexa Style Downlights. In association with LIC, हर पल आपके साथ. Kia Carens, it's from a different world.
Shells land, jets shot down, war on. Russia launches full invasion of Ukraine. Explosions rock Kharkiv as Russia invades. Unsettling voices live on India Today.
Goes as normal, but the traffic is more than usual.
World's nightmare comes true with this. Ukrainians headed to shelters and bunkers.
Куда, сестра, братья, куда мне бежать? Куди ховатися? Куди, скажіть, будь ласка?
Putin declares war on Ukraine.
Thanks for staying with India Today's non-stop, uninterrupted coverage of the world at war. Russia's big military offensive on Ukraine. Unprecedented images of combat and conflict right here on India Today. I'm Shivaru. Thank you very much for your viewership on this important day for the entire world. Here are the headlines at 6. Ukraine claims over 30 Russian strikes on civilian and military structures across the country. Russian invasion has mega global economic impact. Sensex closes down 2,700 points, the second largest fall ever. Crude oil hits a 7-year high in prices. Prime Minister Modi to hold meeting on Ukraine crisis with Home Minister, Raksha Mantri, Finance Minister, NSA and other senior officials. India issues an advisory to nationals stranded in Ukraine, asks everyone to stay in their homes or hostels. MEA sets up 24/7 control room. Ukraine ambassador seeks Modi's intervention. India Today continues to be the only Indian channel reporting from every key region in Ukraine, from Donbass to Kiev to Mariupol. Your channel brings you all the latest from ground zero.
What we're able to see on ground: 1, explosions; 2, military movement; 3, a lot of emergency vehicles moving in this area; 4, people being asked to stay where they are as much as possible.
Two big developments coming in from Ukraine at this time. 2 helicopters shot down in a North Kiev suburb called Hostomel by the armed forces of Ukraine, as claimed by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine right now. Big development coming in. It is being claimed officially by Ukraine that 2 Russian helicopters have been shot down just north of Kiev while they were on their way to the Hostomel Air Base, which is a large aviation testing facility owned by the Antonov Aircraft Company just north of Kiev. It's a large aviation facility, and it appears to have been taken over by the Russian forces. Let's put that image, let's put that video on air of those helicopters. There you have it. Those are the helicopters from Russia that are headed towards the Ukrainian airbase of Hostomel. And now Ukraine says 2 of these helicopters have apparently been shot down as well. Okay, India. Pyrosenko is with us live from Kiev at this point. Maria, good to see you back with us. I hope you're okay. Very dramatic images coming in from all sides. These images on our screen right now, I'm sure you've already seen them, Maria, of Hostomel Airport, which is a suburb of Kiev. It's the Antonov Airport. These helicopters of the Russian Federation appear to be headed towards there to take over that particular airbase. Anything that you're hearing about these images?
Yes, I would like even to clarify more. Not 2, but 3 helicopters of Russian forces were shot down by the Ukrainian Air Force. So that's the information we've been having for 2 hours. There is also some new development right now. The combat center informs actually the Ministry of Defense, and the information goes through other channels, informs that there is 1 more Russian helicopter near Vyshgorod. It is also the northern part, to the north from Kiev. It's close to Borispil and close to Hostomel, the places where 2 big air bases are located. So Borispil is a civil airport, and Hostomel is a military air base to the north of Kiev. So for now, we have already 5 helicopters, 5 Russian helicopters put down by the Ukrainian forces. So 3 of them in Hostomel. This video, which is circulating all over the internet, that was verified. According to the information of the headquarters of Ukrainian Defense Ministry, there were 20 helicopters in total, 20 Russian helicopters. 3 of them were shot down. One more helicopter shot near Mezhyhirya. It is also to the north of Kiev, and one more shot near Vyshgorod. So 5 in total as for now. Also, we are getting very troubling news from Odessa, where the military base was shelled, and the number of casualties is very high. 18 people died during this shelling. And also one more thing about the child I've talked during the previous live chats. This is the casualty of bombing near Kharkiv. The town is called Chihuiv. One death of innocent child is also reported from there. So that's the situation now in Ukraine. We've seen also military blocking the central quarters of Ukrainian capital of Kiev. They have they blocked the central streets of Kiev, but not so that civil cars can go, but just to protect and to keep the streets in control. I wouldn't be able to show you these images because military told us not to do this because of safety reasons. I hope that's understandable, and we have to stick to this because the situation is still very tense in Kiev, and I can see that people are now embracing the new reality that the invasion is already happening, and that is the time to understand what to do next. And we have also seen the new move of the defense ministry. They have simplified the procedure of being drafted to territorial defense. So now to be drafted in territorial defense, so it's like volunteer units, you need only to bring your passport. So the times are extraordinary, said the defense minister Alexei Reznikov. That is why this is the important move. This is what is urgent, to make this procedure as simple as possible. You come, you bring
inches and fighting for every inch of territory. India Today will continue to report from Ground Zero. A quick break. Lots more coming up on the other side of these messages. Stay with us.
Crypto Watch brought to you by BitBNS.
मौसम खराब की वजह से दुश्मन इन्फिल्ट्रेशन करने की फिराक में है तो हमारा एओआर के अंदर एक पेट्रोलिंग का टास्क मिला है.
During the harsh winters on the line of control, most of the areas remain cut off due to the heavy snowfall. Temperature dips down to minus 20 degrees centigrade during the night. How the brave hearts of Indian Army are guarding the nation in these harsh winters. I am Ashraf Wani with video journalist Rauf Ahmed, bringing you ground report from LOC.
Grounded in journalism, on the ground reporting, only on India Today TV.
This is Ukraine's true danger zone. This is where gun firing and artillery firing has begun. After a perilous 14-hour train journey from Kiev, India Today reports from the real war zone. Only channel in the rebel combat zone.
Barricades that have been set up, and beyond those barricades is the deployment of the Russian army.
Up close and fearless in Ukraine's combat zone.
watching India Today.
News just coming in, a Ukraine military plane has just crashed. A Ukraine military plane with 14 on board has crashed very close to Kiev is information that is coming in. Emergency services in Kiev are reporting that this Ukraine military plane crashes with 14 personnel on board, and this is being attributed to emergency services on ground. This is information just coming in. Ukraine military plane crashes near Kyiv with 14 military personnel on board, according to emergency services reporting on ground. This situation is very fast escalating. The world is reacting to the developments that are taking place. So what's happened through the morning? Intense shelling reported in several parts of Ukraine, including Mariupol, where we are, in the Donbas region, in Luhansk, in Donetsk, in Kiev, in Kharkiv, in Odessa. Intense shelling taking place. Ukraine claims it has shot down 7 aircraft of Russian Air Force, including 2 helicopters. So 5 aircraft, 2 helicopters. Russians, the indication is, and the information that is coming in seems to indicate that the Russians have taken control of a very crucial airfield, very, very close to Kiev, barely 10 kilometers from Kiev. They've taken control of an airfield. And just now information coming in that an aircraft of the Ukrainian Air Force with 14 members on board has crashed. Emergency services have confirmed this. What's the reaction that's coming in from world leaders? Tremendous condemnation of Russian action. But will they only pay lip service and sympathy to Ukraine, or will it extend beyond? Let's find out.
War has been declared. Ukraine has been invaded by Russia. It's been building up to this moment for months, and America's efforts, along with its allies to block Putin, have quite literally gone up in smoke. Russian President Putin shot off a stern message to the world while confirming his invasion plans.
I've taken the decision to conduct a special military operation. Its purpose is to protect people who have been subject to abuse and genocide by the Kiev regime for 8 years. And to do this, we will strive to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. And also bring to justice those who have committed numerous bloody crimes against civilians, including citizens of the Russian Federation.
The White House immediately issued a statement condemning Russia's move, and Biden deeming it as unprovoked and unjustified. But for now, they've adopted a wait-and-watch policy, with Biden saying he will decide the next step with the allies.
Colleagues, a few moments ago, I spoke to President Biden, who asked me to convey in the strongest possible terms his and our steadfast support for Ukraine. The United States and our allies and partners will continue to respond to Russia's actions with unity, with clarity, and with conviction. We're here for one reason and one reason only: to ask Russia to stop, return to your borders, send your troops and your tanks and your planes back to their barracks and hangars.
Ukrainians speaking to India Today appealed to the West and NATO to offer support. Not words, but military support to help them fight Russia.
Explosions are being heard in Kiev, but according to official data, these were explosions on a military storage around Kiev and approximately 100 kilometers from Kiev. We do not exactly what were the consequences of these explosions.
It is, however, a complete improbability that any country will offer military support, including the United States, which could consider diplomatic isolation or the strictest sanctions.
And I think it seems like they're evaluating their options. It also seems like everything is on the table, which means essentially all sanctions, full scale of sanctions on the table, which also includes SWIFT. But as far as I know, as far as I've been told by senior State Department officials over here in the US, it looks very highly unlikely that the US will put boots on the ground. I think they will continue to work with their allies. I mean, there's a G7 meeting that's going to be that President Biden is going to attend tomorrow. He's going to sort of spearhead that meeting tomorrow. And after that, I think we'll probably see more sanctions coming in tomorrow. I really do not think there will be any sort of boots on the ground or a military engagement with the Ukraine forces.
Most countries are following the sanctions route against Russia.
We are facing an unprecedented act of aggression by the Russian leadership against a sovereign, independent country. Russia's target is not only Donbas. The target is not only Ukraine. The target is the stability in Europe and the whole of the international peace order. And we will hold President Putin accountable for that. Later today, we will present a package of massive and targeted sanctions to European leaders for approval. With this package, we will target strategic sectors of the Russian economy by blocking their access to technologies and markets that are key for Russia. We will weaken Russia's economic base and its capacity to modernize.
Australia, meanwhile, has announced visa priority for Ukrainians a day after extending sanctions on Russia. With Gaurav Sawant in Mariupol, Bureau Report, India Today.
And I say to the Ukrainians in this moment of agony, we're with you. We're praying for you and your families, and we are on your side. And if the months ahead are grim and the flame of freedom burns low, I know that it will blaze bright again in Ukraine, because for all his bombs and tanks and missiles, I don't believe that the Russian dictator will ever subdue the national feeling of the Ukrainians and their passionate belief that their country should be free. And I say to the British people and all who have heard the threats from Putin against those who stand with Ukraine, we will, of course, do everything to keep our country safe.
And Rob Watts, DW correspondent, now joins me for more on the story on steps that EU and Europe, the European Union, intends to take against Russia in this case. So one, there is a notice to airmen or a NOTAM that has been issued. The airspace is completely sealed. What are the effective steps that EU intends to take? What more can you tell us, Rob, in terms of steps on ground to deter Russia?